Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming back for this exciting session. And I'm going to hand straight over to Tina Musoke, who's going to host this session from the DC hub. So over to you, Tina.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone over in the US. Good afternoon, everyone in Abuja and across the pond. My name is Tina Musoke, and I am a communications consultant. So you might be wondering, why do I have a giant trash can? That is a good question. Well, the good news is you are in for the treat of your life. This invited panel session is called Trash This, the Global Education Edition. During this session, we will be asking our panel of amazing education celebrities to talk about if there was one thing that they could get rid of forever, for life, when it comes to our field. What is that they would do? You might be familiar with this. It is taken from a format inspired by a TV comedy television show called Room 101, in which celebrities discuss their pet hates and persuade the co-hosts and the host to co-sign their hates to oblivion in Room 101. For all of you who are George Orwell fans, this is from his book 1984, which reputedly contained the worst thing in the world in Room 101. So, with all that, we have three amazing Rise celebrities. Let us start with, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please on the trash can. Like to start with Léonard Wantchékon. Yay! Léonard is a principal investigator for the Rise Nigeria team. He's a professor of politics and associated faculty in economics at Princeton. He founded the Institute for Empirical Research in Political Economy and the Africa School of Economics in Benin. Whew. He is the most important part of it, he is a fantastic dancer. This man got moves, and I'm telling you, the Rise team, they have witnessed it and can tell you all about it. If you are really good, maybe he will show us some of those moves at the end, but we'll see. So without further ado, Léonard, please go on and tell us, what is it that you hate with everything in your soul? Léonard, can you hear us? Were you dancing? Léonard, you might be muted.
Yes, now I'm muted. Okay, good. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to showcase not my dance move, but what I hate the most about education policies in Africa. So if I have to get rid of one thing, is donor interference in policy making and in education and reform. So let me start with the motivation. So in 2000, there was a reform in 13 African countries, particularly Benin, which is called approche par les compétences, which means skill-based approach to education. So that project, which has been inspired and set up by USAID, was expected to, the expectation is that it will be a solution to learning crisis. But then it led to a very dismal outcome. And it has been heavily criticized because it was just, it was basically set up by donors and imposed on experts who didn't know what it was and what to make of it. And, but in fact, what this has led to is something like this: real estate development. So to the point where there was a neighborhood in Porto Novo, Benin, called Approche par les compétences, which is basically the money supposed to be used in education has led to villas and fancy neighborhoods, which means that the money was used by bureaucrats. So the reason why, the main argument that I wanted to make is that donor interference it tends to do more harm than good. It involves large amount of cash, which lead to opportunity for corruption. It reduces government accountability and responsibility. It removes government decision-making from the hand of stakeholders and can decrease education demand, let alone the fact that the volatility in aid it may not be conducive to sustainable policies. And, but one, this is not particularly surprising because it's very much part of the general debates on what the so-called aid curse, which leads to incentivization for corruption and misguided policy priorities. In the case of education, for instance, a Kenyan government official said that the targets such as MDGs determine the direction, volume, and pace of external assistance. The problem is those targets and goals are not aligned with national policies and actually deflect indigenous policy formation. So, and there were a lot of scandals, in Kenya, and this is just an example. So, I think what I would like to argue for is redirecting aid, not ending it, to incentivize agency by government officials, by promoting stakeholder involvement, and reduce opportunities for embezzlement by involving community in decision-making and monitoring. So, and this is the kind of idea and initiatives that is being experimented in Nigeria currently as part of RISE. The goal of that project is to understand how constructive dialogues between education stakeholders, politicians, will influence not only behavioral change, education investment, attitude toward reform and outcome. So we are trying to experiment the design of institutions that will give more agency to stakeholders and governments in policymaking. And the process of this intervention involved, first of all, information gathering and dissemination on policy preferences of key stakeholders, deliberation through the organization of education summit in randomly selected areas, and the drafting and signing of a social contract. So the social contract can constitute the basis for maybe donor support and involvement, but with significant ownership and engagement by government and stakeholders, domestic stakeholders. Yeah. So, and what I would like, I'm going to finish by making a general case for research on not only policy that will work, that will improve education outcome, but on decision-making processes that will empower communities, that will put decision-making in the hand of government and stakeholders as opposed to foreign donors. And what I would like to push for is a focus on trying to find the intrinsic effect of those processes. What is the added value beyond the policy that they have led to? What is the added value of those decision-making processes? I think this is a research agenda that I think is very important. Throughout the conference, we heard quite a bit about, school-based management committees and community involvement. And there is a lot of skepticism about how effective they have been. My argument will be that there is no turning back. This is the future. You cannot make decisions on education without active involvement of communities and government. The question is, how can you best do it? How can you design, what is the best way you can actually engage communities, governments, to make those policies not only effective, but sustainable in the future? So this is, so to summarize, donor interference is something that I will trash for sure, and corruption and lack of agency is why I would. And the solution for me is think creatively about an experiment also, decision-making processes that will not only lead to better policy, better informed policy, but also agency by governments and communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Léonard. That was a good one. I'm not gonna lie. Donor interference, that's a big one. Again, this is Trash This, the session you have all been waiting for, where celebrities come in the global education field to tell you what they would put in the trash can, in the dustbin for the people on the other side, if they had one thing to do. The next person really needs no introduction. Our next celebrity is Rukmini Banerji. I kind of feel we need like some Beyonce music, like formation coming in as she comes in. Rukmini is, I'm gonna make sure I read it right because this is very important for the whole of probably mankind and womankind. Rukmini is a member of the RISE Intellectual Leadership Team, and she is the CEO of Pratham Education Foundation. She has been the driving force behind the annual status of education report in India and pioneered the teaching at the right level approach. Rukmini also is a published author in children's books. How amazing. Rukmini, the floor is yours. What do you want to throw in the trash can?
Well, first of all, to stay on the same stage as our Washington, D.C. celebrities, I have my own garbage can right here. And I'm opening it as I give you my little spiel. Thank you so much. Hard to go after our dancer, but I'm going to try. What you see here on the screen is a familiar tool used in many languages in India and now in Pakistan and in many countries in Africa as well. Started out as the Asr tool. And you can see there are letters, there are words, there is a small paragraph, and then there is what we call the story. And by and large, the story is sort of like what kids are asked to read in second grade, sort of, and you'll see what I mean. Now, based on this, and you know that the thing I want to trash is age grade curriculum. And in countries like mine, where I feel it doesn't quite fit, and it gets in the way of the progress of children. And maybe we should trash the age grade curriculum, not maybe forever, but until the curriculum and the children are much closer to each other. So let me tell you the logic of what I'm saying, very familiar with, I'm sure, most of you who are there in the audience. If we go to the next slide, here, standard Asr table, the last big countrywide Asr survey, the annual status of education survey report, was done in 2018 in all rural districts of India. And you can see this is a very familiar table. You see each row is a grade, and usually the criteria for you to be in a grade is age or range in your age. And so typically our school systems in most parts of the world are organized by these rows. Each row is an age and grade. And the assumption is that you move from one age and grade to the next age and grade. So, however, we know from these simple assessments, which are used in the broadly called citizen-led assessments, that in each grade, there are all these different levels. And so if I look at the third grade, the first row, you'll see that if I use the story as a proxy for being at grade level, then in 2018, our national number for the kids who were at grade level was under 30%, which means that compared to where they're supposed to be on the curriculum, already by grade 3, which is roughly age 8, 70% of kids are already not at grade level and well below. How below? Again, you can look across the row and you can see that not only is only about 27% at grade level, I have 12 plus 22, which is, let's say, 34 plus 20, 50% who are not yet even able to read a sentence. And the logic goes further down. You can see that when I come to grade 5, 50% of my kids are at least grade 2 level and maybe higher, but there is a big distribution below that. And I think this is a characteristic that within each grade, there is a lot of variation. This is a characteristic of many countries, both in South Asia and in Sub-Saharan Africa. But what happens in these classrooms? What is a grade 5 teacher or a grade 4 teacher doing? She is usually teaching from the grade 5 textbook, and she starts at chapter 1. Her role is to go up to chapter, whatever it is, at the last chapter. And she has to do that because that is what she's expected to do by the system. And it's a different story that only half the kids are at least at grade 2 level, and fewer are perhaps at 5th grade level. But her entire instructional energy is spent on really ensuring what we call in India, complete the syllabus or get the curriculum out of the way. If you go to the next slide, I'm just going to belabor this point till you are going to throw your age grade curriculum in the trash yourself. Here are states in India, and we are looking at percentage of children in grade 3 who are, let's say, at grade level, which basically means they can read basic text fluently. And you can see there's a huge range from states at the top of this heap where close to 50% are at grade level, and a large chunk is very close behind, to states where 10% are at grade level, and everybody else is far, far behind. But the activity that is happening in the classes across the school system is you're being taught from the age, grade, curriculum, and the textbook, because that is what is considered to be education. Next slide shows you this picture over time. If I was Land, I would have some very neat words for these, which I don't have because I'm not Land, but I'm just sitting here waiting with my trash can. And you can see here that across time, from 2008 to 2018, a dip and then a slight rise. And for the green, which is a similar second grade level math, there is a fall and not much of a rise. And the story in 2018, just like what I told you, is 70% of kids already by second grade, by the end of second grade, early third grade, are well below what is considered to be grade level. And yet we stick in our system to the religion of teaching from grade level material. Next slide. This is just to give you a flavor of what a second grade chapter looks like. And you can see how many children can read that very simple story, which is really perhaps 1/4 of this. But this is the kind of material that we have in our textbook. Sometimes when I look at these, I feel it's designed to ensure that many children get left behind. There are others, well-known researchers connected to RISE and otherwise, who feel that this whole tyranny of the curriculum is really what is a big contributor to the learning crisis. Next slide. So, as we look ahead, what should we do? And so here is what I've done is, because we have USSR data for a lot of years going back to the past, I've just tried to track cohorts. And I did this as actually part of a little RISE article I wrote maybe around this time last year, where we were trying to figure out that we are all talking about learning loss, but what is the usual learning gain in a typical year in the past? ASER data gives us a good idea of what happens, and these colors are all meant to follow cohorts as they go through the system. And if I just take one cohort, the cohort that was in grade 2 in 2016 and moved by 2018 to grade 4, you see roughly there is a 20 percentage points improvement in the ability to read this simple text. Roughly translated, that is 10 percentage points in a whole year. This is one state in India, UP, which is towards the bottom of the table of the states. But this is what you see, that in given depending on the year, depending on the grade, depending on the cohort, in lower grades, in usual years, we have a very flat learning trajectory, 5 to 10 percentage point increase year on year. And in recent years and in slightly higher grades, that improvement is anywhere between 10 and 15. And this happens when you use your curriculum, age grade curriculum, as the anchor for what you do throughout your elementary system. Now, are there options? Am I suggesting throwing this into the garbage just like that? Or are there some other options that we can see? So next slide is where I try to convince you. And I think if you just go slowly, let me look in the same state in UP, large state, 130,000 primary schools run by the government, many others by the private schools. What is the kind of progress that you can see if you were to put the curriculum aside, age grade curriculum for the elementary grades aside, and focus only on building basic reading and basic math? Obviously, the approach that we are using here is the approach that we've developed and really worked on very hard over the last 20 years, teaching at the right level. And let me show you what it looks like if you do that. So UP, largest state, example from not long ago, roughly the same time as the ASER results I showed you. Just click on the next, and then we can see what we can do. You already know this. I showed you 5 to 15 percentage points annually is the year-on-year learning gain if you teach using the curriculum. If you do teaching at the right level, which is another way of saying put your curriculum aside, start at the level of the child. We were able to do this with the UP government for 60 to 70 days that year. And the results that you see, which will magically appear now, is that you were able to do something like a 14, 15 percentage points in this short period of time, in 60 or 70 days. And if you think of a whole school year as having 200 working days, the possibility of really coming up with a much bigger learning gain, same kids, same teachers, if you put the curriculum aside, is very high. No brainer what we should do. Just as I finish, I want to show you this is not just a UP phenomena. Last slide, I think, that I have on the many different states. I've named some of the states here in India, different time periods. You'll see the number of schools in which this partnership with governments. And on the right-hand side, you will see the kinds of percentage point improvements that has been possible using a method, teaching at the right level, but fundamentally a method an approach that says, put your grade level curriculum aside, focus on building the foundations, and this is the kind of progress that you can get. So I hope I've convinced you. Here's my trash can. I'm waiting with it open, and let's see what happens. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rukmini. This is hard. One thing I did not tell you is you guys, everybody here and there, everywhere, gets to vote on Trash This, Global Education Edition. So we have had, Léonard talked about donor interference. Rukmini told us about age grade curriculum. Now, our final celebrity who has 10 minutes to convince you all to vote for him is Jishnu Das. He's here with me, so he gets like spirit hands. Okay, so I'll talk about Jishnu. Is a principal investigator on RISE Pakistan team and a professor at the McCourt School of Public Policy and the Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. Many of you will know that already. What you don't know, maybe, is that Jishnu over here is an avid climber. And when we talk about climber, we're not like, you know, climbing up steps or climbing up ladders. He rock climbs, he climbs mountains in the Himalayas, everywhere. This is the guy that Léonard and Rukmini are going against. Okay, our final competitor, Jishnu Das.
Thank you. So, thank you. So one thing is super clear, I cannot compete with Léonard or Rukmini on stature or substance. So I decided to go for entertainment instead, right? So thanks, Tina, and thanks, guys. We're going to trash vouchers. I think that's it's time, right? And the way we're going to make this work. So just as an aside, I really like this picture. It's one of the most famous posters from education, and it's really nice. It has students. The students are a gear, and it has parents, and it has teachers. So I was like, I got to do this with vouchers, right? I mean, vouchers, we got to make them work like gears, right? I mean, that's how they should work. So what are vouchers? Those gears don't work. Yeah, hold on. What are vouchers? The idea was very simple. You have houses. You know, you have people in a village, and it has one school that's public, and it has a school that's private. Here's what we should do, because the public school has low test scores. It's overcrowded, but it's cheap, so poor people go there. The private school has high test scores, it has low class sizes, but it's expensive, so the rich go there. We don't like this. So what should we do?
Put your mic closer.
Oh, there's a great app where you can put people and ask what they would look like if you put them in the Himalayas as a monk, and that's Milton Friedman if you put him through the app. So what you get? So you get the old Indian sadhu, and he says, look, what we should do is give each of these households money. And then all these guys who are poor and in the public school are going to go to the private school, and everybody's going to be better off, right? Problem. So this was great. You know, I got the gears working. I scratched out. What did I scratch out? I scratched out schools. I scratched out others, and I made it private, treasury, and parents, right? But as Luis pointed out, these gears actually don't work, right? Not work in some metaphysical sense. You can't make the damn thing work. If you turn the treasury left, then the private goes left, but parents want to go either right or left. These gears don't work. I didn't know this, but you cannot put together 3 interlocking gears. It just doesn't work, right? What do I mean in this case by it doesn't work? I mean the following. So let's step back a second and say, what's the causal chain that people are thinking about when they're thinking about vouchers? Well, they're saying there are many children in public schools, right? They all want to go to private schools because they're better. That's the first part of your causal chain, but they don't have the money to do so, right? Third part of the causal chain is when we give them money to go to private schools, they will. Fourth part, because private schools are better, their test scores will improve. And the fifth part is, you know, and this is the real reason, as a government, we don't need to manage a thing, right? Every step of this causal chain is broken just like the gears. Every single step, right? So let me tell you exactly what the first problems are. So the first one, even when the government offers money to parents to send their children to private schools, the parents don't want to do it. And that's true whether it's Pakistan, whether it's India, whether it's DC, right? Technically, so technical word for this is what's the price elasticity of private schooling, which says if you decrease the price by say 100%, how many more kids will come? The answer is typically about 20%. So if you lower, and this is true in a large number of studies which are now coming out, the price elasticity of private sector schooling is somewhere between -0.1 and -0.2, right? This is not nothing, but remember that the government is going to pay for all the children who are in private school. This is what we saw in Abhijit Singh's paper a couple of days back, which is, you're giving these vouchers, but 80% of the kids you're giving the vouchers to would have gone anyway. Who are these kids? They're kids who are rich. So 80% of the money that you're transferring is now going to rich kids who would have gone to the private schools anyway. Part one of those gears are broken. Right? What's the second part? We're really trained to think in terms of homogeneous units. We think private schools have higher test scores than public schools in homogeneous units, which becomes all private schools have higher test scores than all public schools. That is a lie, right? Here's the real picture, right? So what I've done here is drawn for you 112 villages from Pakistan. And the triangles are public schools and the dots are private schools. And I've just arranged it in terms of average public school performance. And there's a lot of work behind actually identifying these school quality scores, and you should think about them as causal. The important thing is, it is the case that the really bad schools are all public, right? But remember one more thing, in every village, barring a couple, so this is a bad example, where there's a bad public school, there is also a good public school, right? And in fact, the best public schools are equally public and equally private, right? So now put this together, and what you get are something called zombie public schools. So we call those bad public schools, which are big zombie public schools. Vouchers could increase test scores dramatically for children if they move from the worst performing public schools, those 20%. Usually they don't do that. And why not? Well, if you are going to the worst performing public school when there's a much better public school in your village that's free, you've got to have a really strong reason to go there. Either it's much closer to your house, or it's much safer, or that's where all your friends are, right? And if you have a really strong reason to go there, the money is not going to drive you to the other one. So usually what you get is even those 20% of kids who are moving are actually moving from the much better public schools to the private schools, and you see very small changes in their test scores as a result. So each of these parts is broken. So the children who move are coming from better performing public schools, but there's little test score gain in moving from a great public to a great private school, just very little. Right? So why do I want you to trash this? I want you to trash this for two reasons. First of all, they are a huge subsidy for the relative rich to continue spending their money, children to private schools. Worse, in a lot of countries now, taxation systems are actually regressive, so you're taking money from the poor and giving it to the rich, right? There are far better ways to do things, many of which have been highlighted in the conference, but the biggest reason I want you to trash this, right, in addition to the other two, I mean, I have absolutely nothing, we should trash curriculum, we should trash other things, is that the people behind vouchers are really strong politically, right? And they're rich people. And a place like India, where now 30% of kids are being funded through vouchers, Pakistan, where the same thing is happening, but nothing has happened to either test scores or private school enrollments, these things are becoming more and more politically hard to touch. And what I'm really worried about is at the national level, if this happens at a large scale, which it is in many countries, things like trashing the curriculum will become impossible because you have no leverage. Right? We will lose all leverage we have at the moment by going down that route. And that's why I think this is what we need to trash first. We cannot give up on state schools especially because there are things like curricular reforms, things like getting rid of foreign interference that are key to improving our stuff, but we can't do it if we lose control. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jishnu. That was amazing. Again, if you haven't heard this 4 times already, this is Trash This Global Education Edition. If this was a normal group of celebrities, we would then go into the voting. But because these are super smart, accomplished, good-looking people, we're going to up the ante a little bit, and we've been asking you to send some questions in, so they can't just win easy. Like, to get the trash award is a big thing. So we have asked a couple of people have been sending in questions, and we'll just have a couple of minutes where we can go through some Q&A. The first one actually goes to the whole panel, and it says, are there people, actors, that you feel most need to hear your message? That is, who do you think is actively promoting these messages? We will start with you, Léonard. Sorry, you're on mute, Léonard.
Yeah, so that's as I said, yeah, I think that's a tough one. Obviously, you should speak to governments, the Ministry of Education, but they have not much incentive to listen. So then you need to advocate with the international community as well, but they want to continue, So I think we cannot be one individual or one actor. Maybe it has to be, more deliberative kind of communication where you have the government, you have donors, you have stakeholders say we should do things differently. We cannot basically letting parents and teachers and local governments out of the equation and just make the decision on their behalf and channel this decision through foreign aid or financial support. So I wouldn't pick one. I think I will advocate for more deliberative approach involving all the key stakeholders, including donors.
You, Rukmini?
So one of the reasons I'm here talking to you in the middle of the night is because you guys are influential people. Can you hear? Tina, can you hear?
Very well. Can you check your mic or your AirPod? Or?
Yeah.
Can you hear now? Can you hear now?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I'm saying one of the reasons I'm awake at 10 o'clock at night, almost talking to all of you influential people across the world is I want you to advocate my position that you cannot have an age-grade curriculum anchoring what we all think of as the education system, and when it doesn't fit. So I feel that, because we have a very large number of parents who may not have had much education before, the age grade curriculum is like a security blanket. That's what you know, that's what you've grown up with. You have textbooks that change every year, and the textbooks help you navigate this path. But at home, you're often very not able to really realize whether your kids are able to do it or not. A lot of our policymakers whose own children don't have this learning problem feel that they must compete with what happens in the rest of the world, where perhaps age grade curriculum fits much better. So I think it's all across the board, and right now is the right time. We've had in different countries different durations of COVID related school closure, and this is the time really to put our curriculum aside, especially in countries like ours, and focus on building these foundations. And if we really believe in all this decision, data-based decision making and evidence leading to action, if we really believe it, then there's plenty of evidence in countries like ours which say if you do that, you will make big gains. So I want everybody from you all to governments to parents to wake up and accept what I'm saying.
Great. Jishnu, how about you? Who is actively promoting these messages?
So first of all, I just wanted to thank whoever is muting Léonard and Rukmini. You're doing a great job. Just keep doing it strategically and we'll get there. Also makes me worry a little bit about the integrity of the voting process. I don't know if this is being done. You know, some people are saying there are problems. We'll get into that depending on who wins. Okay, more seriously. So I think we're at really at a crucible, because part of the problem has been our continually saying that things are not improving and the state is not performing also means that the state has started giving up on itself. You know, the group of people in India who are now fighting to say that the government schools can improve is really small. It's really small. So we're really at this crux where the state is saying, look, you know, you guys are telling us for the last 20 years we're not managing to do anything. Why don't we just give up on this damn thing? So if we can't sort this out now, right? And I haven't even talked about the political problems of vouchers, right? I know one city in India where the private schools were owned by politicians and their family, and then they put those schools as vouchers, regulated out the other private schools and started increasing the voucher amounts. So, I don't even want to go into what direction this is going to take, but who should it reach? I'm a strong believer in democracy, and I really think in a lot of countries, just writing, getting it out there and getting it into the public domain actually changes the discussion and the way we think. So I think what we need to do is change minds. We need to change minds that, yes, there's a reason why the government has not been able to do it so far, but it can do it, right? It can do it through the kind of stuff that Rukmini is doing. It can do it by cutting down on foreign interference. But that faith is really the first step that we need to take. And I'm kind of relying on as many people as possible to get those messages out to spur a democratic conversation about this.
Thank you, Jishnu. Looking through these questions, Jishnu, I'm going to go back to you because I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is a fair process. So I will go back to you. There is a question. So should we get rid of vouchers, or should we get rid of the whole principle of promoting private education as a solution through PPPs and others, and instead promote adequately financed and manage public education to get high quality and equitable learning opportunities for all? He is not muted.
Okay, guys. I just thought I'd level the playing field here. But okay, so look, I want to make a difference between supporting private schools and supporting private schooling. I do not think that government should be supporting private schools. I do not think that public money should be used for private schools. On the other hand, a lot of my research with Tahir and Asim is about how do you improve the entire market, treating all players as fairly as possible. Right? And there we are showing huge gains by providing information on schools. We are showing for 11 years, you can improve test scores as innovation kicks into these villages. Right? So there's a big difference between using government money to support private schools and using government money to support schooling in general. So what are my take? My take is, one, do everything you can to improve state schools and do not worry about whether they close down private schools. Don't. But the other set of things you can do, which will dramatically improve performance, is set a level playing field on a lot of different fronts. Make sure that parents have information about all schools in their area. Make sure that private schools can access banks, can access small and medium, microfinance institutions the same way other businesses can. And we have a whole plethora of ways to think about it. But the key is separate schools from schooling, right? We have this famous phrase which says every private institution increases, the efficiency decreases in direct proportion to the subsidy it receives. That's worth keeping in mind.
Thank you. Talking about making sure everybody is equitable, the next question is for our Queen Bee, Rukmini. It says, don't all children deserve to learn the same material as countries that appear to perform the best in the world? So say Singapore or Finland. And doesn't a comprehensive curriculum help ensure that?
Before I answer your question, Tina, I want to say that if you want Jishnu and Léonard to win, I have to win first, because unless you get this right, they're not going to succeed. That's my little plug for getting me to win. Okay, now, I think that, I don't know how many people who are listening come from countries where you buy an outfit and then you take it to the local tailor and then he alters it to fit your shape, and you keep doing this until you've got it right. And I think that there are countries who, I think that curriculum for a particular grade or age may work very well in places where they've been doing these adjustments over a period of time. And for a bulk of children in any grade of whatever age, a majority are able to actually acquire whatever has been designed for them. Teachers are able to deliver, parents are able to support, and the environment is supportive and conducive to getting that done. Now, I know very little about Finland and Singapore. In my own neighborhood, there are more people than there are in either of these countries, but that's a different story. Sorry, I just couldn't help that. It's late at night here, so I have to make some bad jokes. The point is that I don't know what the process of curriculum adjustment to the level of achievement that the majority of children are able to do has been in many of these countries. But what I think is this is a dynamic process. Children make progress, teachers can deliver, but the system needs to be aligned and support them in this path. So there cannot be one size fits all. There cannot be one speed at which we work. But I think there are certain stages, across the world, maybe the SDG is one way of saying it, that by a certain stage, it is great because the achievement of certain basic things at a certain stage enables you to go on to the next stage. But how you get there, I think has to be worked out. Some people may do it faster, some people may do it slower, and you need to work hard at it, especially when you're getting to universal enrollment of all children.
Thank you, Rukmini. The next question is for you, Léonard. Don't country or foreign donors bring in a lot of money to developing country education systems? For example, hasn't foreign aid helped support objectives like the big push for girls' education in northern Nigeria? Is that a bad thing?
No, okay, so first, I'm not saying that foreign aid is intrinsically bad, but you need to get the policy right. You also need local buy-in. You need, for sustainability, to get the key stakeholders to keep it up and to invest in the success in that policy in the long run, So, and for that, you absolutely need to listen to stakeholders. You need to listen to the constraints they are facing. You need to incentivize them and to understand that, okay, girls' education is, for them, is their problem. First, you know, so that they can, you know, take ownership of that policy and implement it properly. You know, so, you know, the assumption that we know everything, we know what's good for them, we know how to do it well, and with foreign aid, we can impose one way to do it and get them to follow. Okay, it might work in the short term, but it's not sustainable. You know, I mean, see what's happened recently in Afghanistan. I mean, you know, so one of the problems is lack of agency. You know, I mean, even ordinary Afghans thought that basically, you know, they are serving the US. They are not serving themselves. They are not serving their communities, you know? So I think it's a bigger problem than just in education. So it's, you know, we might help the general framework on how to do things, but when it comes to implementation, to specificity, to timeline, you cannot do without the stakeholders, you know? So I completely agree that, you know, investing in girl education in Northern Nigeria is a great thing, but you have to get local stakeholders involved. That's critical.
Léonard, and I could see as you were speaking the whole Nigeria hub agreeing with you animatedly. Hello, my Niger brothers and sisters. So Léonard, that's amazing. Now, since you're on a roll, the next question will be for you as well.
Oh my God, okay.
You have the whole Nigeria contingent, you know, cheering for you in the background. Look, they're standing up, you know, it's a...
come on.
Can we give agency to stakeholders and voice when they don't have access to global evidence and knowledge of certain policy rationales due to lack of access? I'll read that again. And donors who are calling it, this is not saying that you don't give money, but give it smart. Yeah. Can we give agency to stakeholders and voice when they don't have access to global evidence and knowledge of certain policy rationales due to lack of access?
So then the answer is in the question, you know, because then you are basically saying that as part of the process, we need to find a way to get stakeholder access to information. You know, we need to compare their own experience to the global experience, you know. So as a result, they need to know what's happening elsewhere, what is possible elsewhere, so that they can actually use that. So, but then at the end of the day, you have to, the knowledge that we are talking about, part of it has to be generated endogenously. You know, like for instance, the way, you know, a policy will work out, the way, the constraint in the implementation, the type of policy, the priorities, you know, without, you know, engaging with local stakeholders, it will remain very general, you know, it will lack specificity, you know, but then, okay, that's one part of it, you know, information, but then the energy, the incentives to invest in the success is not something that can be dropped from an helicopter. It's something that can be generated, that only has to be generated domestically. So if people don't have a voice, they will find themselves foreign to the solution to their problem, you know? So that's why getting a voice is not negotiable. It's something that has to happen. How to make it work best, providing access to information, educating, whatever, this will be, you know, this will be part of the implementation process. You see what I mean? So overall, I think that without access, it might not work. So help to give access. But at the end of the day, you have to make people part of the solution, you know, not drop solution from outside.
Right, and I see Rukmini has her hand up too, but also Jishnu asked if he can say something as well to add on to that, and then Rukmini will let you go after.
So I do want to die peacefully in my sleep like my grandfather, not like the screaming passengers in the car he was driving, but I do want to point out that there's something really funny going on here. Just keep an eye, guys, over there. I think that's the Oxford hub where the voting will be counted. But more seriously, I mean, what I'm worried about, Léonard, is you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So I completely agree with you that we can't have donor, that it's gone on far enough. I mean, in Pakistan, I've kind of seen crazy stuff happening, supported by, countries that also support RISE. But my worry is if you are bringing in the money, you are going to bring in stuff that you want to do. So I would go a step further, and I think we should just be clear. Don't need the money. We don't need the foreign money, don't need the donor money. We can do it by ourselves. And I'm worried that by saying we need the money, but you can do it smartly is actually an oxymoron. That is not going to work. So I think that position is dicey compared to a position of saying, you know what, I mean, and I go back to Gandhi and his point to his South African priest, right? Saying, we don't actually need the money. And Teju Cole has this wonderful article in The Atlantic on the white savior complex and how to think about it. It's really sharp. And I think the point we need to make is, no, we don't need the money. And we need to give that confidence to our governments, to our elite, to ourselves, that we can do it without that.
All right, restarting this conference.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we should trash vouchers.
Rukmini.
Yeah.
So again, I want to win, but I can't help adding to Léonard's point. I'm a bit torn about that. But anyhow, I think that Léonard is talking about donor interference, but I also think that a little bit applies to decision makers at whatever level. And in addition to people at the ground level having access to information and evidence, I think, as one of my young colleagues once said, if you can't feel the problem, you're not going to act on it. So how do you make decision makers feel the problem? And how do you connect these dots? Because I do think firsthand experience of a lot of these things, if your own child is not struggling with reading in 5th grade, unless you're a very enlightened person and can extrapolate from evidence, you're not likely to sort of move hell and high water to get that changed. And I think that, again, I thought I saw Lant walking somewhere. We need some nice, good names for this: octopus, frogs, or whatever it may be, to catch the imagination of people, to say that this really needs to be done. I don't know much, Léonard, about Africa, although my colleagues who are working in Africa are, gaining experience. But I've seen, for example, the work that was done in Madagascar by the government, by local communities, with the help of JICA, where really large communities were coming together to kind of fill the gaps of what they saw was the issue with learning in their own communities. It needs a lot of hard work, but it can be done where you connect these dots and make the right kinds of decisions for the right kinds of gaps. I want Léonard now to support something that I said, okay?
Léonard, you've been put on notice, and that's great because the next question is for Rukmini. This is Trash This, Global Education Edition. Rukmini, how do curriculum decisions get made in India? What explains this extreme misalignment that, Rukmini, you so eloquently describe?
I really don't know the exact real answer to that, but I think we are, and again, I think I could probably safely say this, not just about India, but about other places. We are victims of our own aspirations. I think the fact that we are coming into universal enrollment, universal continuing to stay in school for a number of years, I think that raises hopes and expectations for everyone. my grandmother never went to school. She wanted me to be like at Harvard. I never made it there, by the way. But, expectations were very high for what you want to do. And I think to a certain extent, the curriculum that we have is a reflection of high aspirations and expectations from the fact that, years of school are bound to translate into years of learning. We are only now learning. We are only now getting to know that the x-axis and the y-axis are actually misaligned. But we have to work hard at bringing them closer together. So I didn't answer your question, Tina, because I don't know the answer. But I do think that if whoever is making curriculum, whoever is accountable for ensuring that whatever I tell people to do should actually get done, if those kinds of people were closer to the ground, in Pratham, for example, and I don't know if you're seeing, because I don't have a whole Abuja crowd like Léonard has, I have a couple of people around me right here. But I think that we will never train, we will never advocate for somebody else to do something that we haven't done ourselves. And I do think that being leaders of practice through and through the system sometimes helps to bridge the gap and figure out what is the right fit that can really work for us.
Okay, we have 1 more minute left for one more question to Jishnu over here. Are there types of public school partnerships that you would advocate for? If not school vouchers, surely good public-private partnerships are really an important element for improving education systems. Jishnu, 30 seconds.
Nope.
Look at that. There is one person, and there is one celebrity a little bit more rebellious than the others, is what I'm sensing, but we're good. So unfortunately, that is the only time we have for questions, unless Léonard wants to tell you about how much he adores Rukmini and is voting for her. But now, the time is here. It is time for voting! Again, this is Trash This, Global Education Edition. You have had 3 celebrities try to persuade you, the audience, why there is the one that should go in, I don't know if that's sanitary, but the trash can or the dustbin. So now you have 2 minutes, if you're all on the line, to vote. AV, can we get that? Or maybe the AV in Oxford across the pond? AV across the pond. It's up? Oh, sorry, it's not up here, but it's on your thing. Can you log in and vote? You have 2 minutes. Is it donor interference? Is it age grade curriculum? Or is it vouchers? Donor interference? Age grade curriculum? Or vouchers?
Hello.
Did Jishnu run away? Did Jishnu run away? Has he given up the field already?
You are still campaigning.
He is campaigning heavily for the people in DC. Léonard, you're missing out. This is where you talk to the people in Nigeria. You talked about them. Okay, voting time. Voting is done. And now it's the time we have all been waiting for. The winner. Oh, wait, I can't really. The winner is. Rukmini Queen Bee! Woo! With her own trash can to trash 8th grade curriculum, and her whole family is cheering for. This is truly an Oscar moment. Oh, Rukmini, hold on. Are we waiting for Nigeria, or is this Rukmini's already celebrating, so if you have something to say, this is the time to say it. Who did we vote for, Nigeria? What is the tally in Nigeria as the circumstance music goes on? Can we go to the Nigeria hub for a second? They have their hand up. I think they're gonna tell us their votes. And then we can go back to the celebratory music. Rukmini, please hold, Rukmini, before we have a family celebration. Nigeria. Nigeria, can someone share with us all the goodness that was happening in voting?
Yes, our voting was actually for foreign interference was the highest vote on here.
Did you have one vote for everybody?
No.
What are the numbers?
Okay, the numbers in terms 659.
Sorry, can you say that again, Leonard, please? Sorry, can you say that again,
voucher.
Nigeria, please?
6 votes for voucher, 15 votes for foreign interference, and then donor was 9 votes. Sorry, curriculum was 9 votes.
So 6, 15, and 9. So we are
Yes.
going to pass this over to the very smart people in Oxford that might need to redo the poll. And if you can tell us, has it changed? Have it changed? Or do we still have the same winner who has already celebrated, but that is okay? We are also, Oxford, what are we trashing?
Foreign interference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What did they have?
That'd be 28,
Okay, 28 for foreign.
27, sorry.
Yeah.
So, Oxford, let us know when you've finished tallying.
9 for 9 for curriculum.
So that'd be 41.
Time.
Can we include an option saying just trash all 3 and we move on? Who disagrees with trashing all 3?
And Tina, my team wants to vote. They are the real teaching at the right level family here. They want to vote as well now.
So Tina,
Yes, Kirsty?
we have the results, having added them
Da-da-da.
together. And I have to say that Rukmini still won.
Woo! Can we get that music again, please? So we can actually, can we get back the celebratory music, AV folks? At least 30 seconds of it? Is that possible? I don't know, but it was really good music. Okay, so now that we have our winner, Rukmini Banerji, Queen Bee, 8th grade curriculum, it is time, Rukmini, for you to give your winner's speech. Please come up to the podium or stay sitting at your desk, and you have 5 minutes to get your acceptance speech.
Oh,
We were not told to prepare for this. Léonard and Jishnu, do you have a better acceptance speech than me? No, I think it's just common sense. This is what we do with our kids. We start where the kids are. We help them along the path, and then they all progress. And that's exactly what we need to do with all children, especially those who have been in school but feel that they are indeed behind. So my acceptance speech is very simple. Let's teach children, let's help them to learn. And curriculum must follow and help us in this process and not get in the way.
Now it is the final ceremony moment. Could we ask you to get your bête noire, what you hate, and show it to everybody? Yeah, okay. And in the obviously, also nominated for this competition was Jishnu and Léonard. Well done. We love you too. And now, thank you all for joining us today. It has been fantastic. Special thanks to our three celebrities, Jishnu, Rukmini, and Léonard. And before we close this, I'd like to hand it over to Kirsty Newman, RISE's Director of Programs, for some closing comments. Kirsty?
Thank you so much, Tina. I feel as if that's a really hard act to follow, so I'm not going to say very much, but thanks everybody for taking part so enthusiastically in that session and indeed the entire day. The one thing that I want to ask you all is that we now are going to have a poll where we'd like to hear from all of you what it is that you would want to throw in the trash. So it might be something different from those three options. So I think in the chat, there should be a link to the poll, hopefully soon, where you can type in whatever it is that you would like to throw in the trash. And I think the results will be hopefully shown on the screen. And that's your last task for the day. So once you've done that, then farewell for today, but please do come back tomorrow because we still have another full day of exciting sessions to come. So thank you very much and goodbye.
We want to thank everyone here